Hey, it's Tony D here with another media podcast. Sorry there hasn't been a regular update. I kind of got out of sync last week or two. Stuff going on in my life. Just real quick, the missus had foot surgery, so I've been taking care of her, and then I got sick, which was a real drag because I was taking care of her and trying to take care of myself. So that sucked majorly. So needless to say, I didn't feel like taping a podcast or doing much of anything other than but some good stuff is going on. Have some Bart Simpsons out. Bart Simpson 82. And I got a story in Simpsons 200. So if you're a Simpsons comics fan, check them out. I will be at Wizard World Comic Con in Philly at the end of May. So if you could find them and you find me at the show, I'd be happy to sign them. So what are we going to talk about this week? Well, I'll tell you what I don't want to talk about is the Boston Marathon bombing, because it seems like for the entire time I was sick, you couldn't turn on the news and hear about anything else. Not that it wasn't newsworthy, and not that things in there were newsworthy, but it just seemed like too much coverage. There was actually a break on CNN a few days ago where they said, they're moving the body of the guy that they killed, the bomber that they killed. They're moving it, and we have live footage of that. Like that mattered to anybody. Like, who cares? How is that even news? Like, they're moving a body, and that body, I mean, he's dead. I mean, what is the footage going to show us? Is it going to show him rise from the dead and start bombing some more people? Stupid. Two news stories I do want to talk about. First, there's this news story about the guy who's in charge of the Air Force's, to prevent or to take care of, situations of sexual assault within the Air Force. He apparently is being brought up on charges of sexual assault. And the reason I bring this story up is because I started, a second job to make a little extra money, substitute teaching, and some of the girls in the class talked about like joining the Army when they got out of high school, and I thought, that's the most insane thing I've ever heard, because there's so much sexual assault in the military. I mean, I wouldn't recommend a guy to join the Army or the Air Force or any of them, especially now. And but a woman, oh my God, it's got to be like 10 times worse, because of all the sexual assaults. And then there you have it. There you have it. The guy who's in charge of stopping the sexual assaults in the Air Force is maybe committing them, allegedly. Can't say anything because it's still only alleged. So that was something that bothered me. Thought I'd share that. And the most amazing news is that this week they caught a Nazi. This is how long evil lasts, kids. That they actually caught a new, well, he's not new, he's a 93-year-old guy. He was like a guard at Auschwitz, I think. I got it up on my computer over there. Yeah, like 93. And they finally caught him. I mean, it's incredible. He must have been like just old enough to be a Nazi. To be, he's probably like the youngest of the Nazis, I guess. And I guess he kept himself in good shape to last this long, so. But 93. Hopefully he'll last a long time to suffer, at least somewhat. I mean, at 93, I mean, he basically got away, but you know, they caught him. So, amazing story. We have a new sponsor on the site. It's called Me Camera, ironically enough. It's a little camera that you wear on your person. You can wear it on like a locket or like pin it to your clothes, and it's kind of like having this little camera, only you walk around with it. So it's sort of like a more portable version of the walk show. I guess I should probably get one, you know, and then I could do the walk show without like holding this camera, which I thought was pretty slick. You know, I got this Kodak ZI-8, which only cost me $100 at Staples, you know, and I thought that was pretty slick. But this thing is like, it's literally this big, and you just pin it to your clothes and off you go. So the Me Camera, check it out. There's a link on the left side of both the websites, the Webcomic Factory and Superfrat, and also check out our other sponsors. We have two sponsors who stayed with us from last month. randomcomics.net, they're a online comic book store, and they have print comics for sale, and mydigitalcomics.com, and they sell digital comics, and a lot of the stuff on their site is free. So definitely check out all three of our sponsors, and we'll be announcing a fourth sponsor soon. So I've been doing good with this on the sponsor front. It's been exciting. So what else is going on? On the Webcomic Factory, we are going to have a new webcomic. We've had an interesting problem on the site in that we have kind of too many comics now, which is a great thing to have. In the old days, we had a problem with not enough comics on the site, and sometimes we'd run out and I'd have to create a comic using the artwork from some of the older comics and rearranging the characters and writing new word balloons, which is fun, don't get me wrong, but it's always nice to have new stuff. So it's a great problem to have. We have too much stuff. So I think the comic's going to premiere on Monday, possibly with the anti-war comic, at least on certain days. I don't know. I haven't quite figured it out yet. We actually would love to get to the point on the Webcomic Factory where we're doing 2 webcomics a day, but I don't know. It's kind of a lot of work and a lot to juggle. Plus, it would cut down on the money for the artist, and I don't want to do that. I'm just, now that we're getting seemingly decent amount of sponsors, I want to, you know, bring that up. So I don't know. We gotta somehow create more content without hurting our money. Maybe more videos like this. I don't know. I haven't gotten any emails from anybody. If you want to send me an email, I can answer a question, or we could talk about webcomics, which I like to talk about. You can send me an email at thefixesin@comcast.net. I will be doing a panel at Wizard World at the end of May. It will be at 7 o'clock at night after the dealer's room closes. I think it's on Friday. And it will be about transitioning from print to webcomics, which, believe it or not, some people still haven't done. There's a lot of guys still in comics who are living in, I guess, the early to mid 90s, and they are not thinking about webcomics at all. They're still trying to make print work. And to a certain extent, print does work. I mean, obviously, there's Kickstarter, and getting stuff in print is still a thing. But when I say they're stuck in the 90s, they're under the old model of doing comics, which is They want to make money selling hard copies primarily. And from what I've seen, that's just not going to work. I mean, that was dying when I was doing it, you know, as full time as I could do it. Unless, you know, even the guys who got tons of orders, I'll never forget, there was a comic that Image put out called Battle Chasers. I don't know if you remember it. Hot comic when it came out. I think it came out in the early 2000s, I want to say, maybe 1999. Anyhow, Battle Chasers comes out. And I didn't particularly think it was a good comic. The art was nice. The pitch was even okay. It was like a medieval version of the Fantastic Four. Was sort of the pitch. But, you know, the story, from my point of view as a writer, I thought sucked. But that being said, people loved it. I mean, people were going crazy for it at a time when, you know, sales were down. This book was selling 250,000 copies. That was a lot of copies. That's a lot of copies now, definitely. And I forget the guy's name who was the creator, but anyhow, he couldn't. First off, they couldn't get the book out quick enough, which, you know, seems to be a problem at Image. But beyond that, the guy eventually left comics for a gig in video games, I believe, which shows you that, you know, if a guy selling 250,000 comics doesn't want to stay in the business, I mean, a guy essentially at the top of his game walks away to go do stuff in another medium, tells you to stay to comic books. I mean, it's, you know, it's bad. So, I mean, I know what I would have done with $250,000 sales. I would have made a lot of money, number one, and I would have parlayed that into something. But, you know, I think there's a lot of comics out there, unfortunately, they're driven by the art, and there's really not much of a story behind them. You know, even the writer-driven comics, the popular ones, they're not that good, if you ask me. People would call me a pessimist, and you might look at my stuff and say, oh, your stuff's not that great. I'm not saying I am, but I'm saying, like, there's not a lot of mind-blowing stuff out there, story-wise. I mean, it's a handful of guys. I mean, you look at a guy like Neil Gaiman, you know, his stuff was pretty awesome. A handful of other guys, you know, Grant Morrison, definitely. But and then there are guys that are good. They're pretty damn good. I wouldn't call them bad, but I wouldn't say they were mind blowing. I'm not going to name names because I don't like to criticize people, because I like the guys that I'm thinking of. But then you go to webcomics. There's cool stuff going on. I mean, just crazy stuff that you wouldn't even think of. You know, some kid the other day launched a comic. It's terrible, but I like the concept was crazy. It was like a league of serial killers or something. I don't know. It was crazy. It was the most craziest concept. Yeah, the art was terrible. I didn't even read it, so I shouldn't even talk about it, but, you know, hey, at least it got my attention. It's something different. And that's the thing great about webcomics, you know, they can come and go. I mean, the new comic that we're going to launch on the Webcomic Factory, it's going to be its own mini anthology of sorts. So we're going to do a story, end it, and then move on to another story in the same sort of genre or vein. So, yeah, that's cool. I mean, it's, to me, that we can do that and do so many different stories. Whereas, you know, Marvel and DC, I mean, to me, they're way past their heyday, you know. It's the same stuff over and over. I can't even really read it anymore. As much as I'd love to get a gig at Marvel and DC, just to put my own spin on things, you know, so much there just doesn't interest me anymore. But anyhow, transitioning to print to web. I mean, you got these guys who are transitioning not to web comics but to digital comics, and the difference being is digital comics are really, you know, you download the comic and then you read it in a reader. So really, it's an electronic version of the print stuff, whereas a web comic is more of an open-ended thing, and not sort of stuck in that mode. It seems like all the digital stuff is just picking up where the print world left off. So to me, most of the digital stuff, granted, a lot of it's high end, but a lot of it's more the same. I mean, it's just superheroes, and couple of more genre-oriented things that open up a little, but you know, not by much. You know, somebody the other day did a web comic. A girl did it for her class, and it just went around the web, about a female comic book fan who's overweight, and she dresses as Wonder Woman, goes to a show, gets ridiculed, and it was about how she felt being a female fan, and you know, about how female fans don't get respected at conventions. And you know, obviously she got name called at the show because she's too heavy to be dressed as Wonder Woman, really. So it was just about her hurt feelings, and it was a really powerful little comic. You know, so that kind of stuff, just in one comic, one web comic, wasn't even a whole website thing. Just, you know, she just did it and posted it. It was nice. The artwork was nice. It had a lot of intensity to it, and there was a lot to it. So that to me is what our web comics. They bring so much newness to the medium, and that's why I do. So, speaking of which, I should get back to doing them because I'm a little behind on my scripts. So that's it for the media podcast this week. Hopefully, things will continue with the media podcast. I don't know if this is going well. Maybe you could tell me. Leave a comment, or, like I said, shoot me an email, and I'll answer your questions about webcomics or whatever else. So that's all. See you next time.